Pete Hegseth putting it on President Trump to decide whether or not a ceasefire is holding. And I think that's the way most military generals, not that Hegseth is a general, but most military operatives would view it, that it's really a political decision about whether or not the other side has broken the ceasefire. Dan Kane saying that there have been 10 incidences of these provocations, but clutching at straws. What I found really informative in listening to this press briefing, which actually took some pretty tough questions, as you've been talking about, from the audience there. One asking Hegseth about how they see the differentiation between I think the questioner, or what Hegseth referred to as Tehran, the political negotiators, and the IRGC, the military hardliners. And he kind of framed, the answer was framed this way, that, we hope or recognizing that there was a difference between the two. And we hope that the IRGC, who they described as sort of perhaps beyond command and control, don't think that's necessarily true, but taking and seeing a difference between the political side in Iran and the military side responding yesterday. And the Pentagon here taking the view that they are at the moment taking on the IRGC, the military side, as opposed to the political leadership, who are the ones that are still very much engaged and have been, over the past 24 hours, absolutely engaged in conversations about talks to de-escalate all of this. So, and I'm instructed to sort of take that view by listening to what Iran's foreign minister said last night. Obviously, some in the Iranian political side, the moderates you might call them, denied that they'd actually targeted the UAE. Obviously, clear judgment will be understood by the United States, by Gulf partners, by Pakistan mediators here. When they can look at the satellite analysis, they'll know who did it. But put that to one side. The Iranian foreign minister said, everyone can see that the military approach is not going to work here right now from what we've witnessed yesterday in the Strait of Hormuz. And he goes on to tell the US and the UAE to avoid getting dragged into a quagmire by what he calls the spoilers. But here's the kicker, and here's the piece that helps us understand the picture and the question that Hegseth took. The foreign minister was then questioned by Iran's National Security and Foreign Affairs Committee. And they challenged him at the end by saying, we're very grateful for the diplomacy you're doing. I'm paraphrasing here. We're very grateful for the diplomacy that you're doing, but you really need to take a tougher line and use all the resources, national resources at Iran's availability. Here, clearly meaning the military, clearly meaning the IRGC. That was a rap on the knuckles for the foreign minister by the hardliners. And what the United States is really tussling with here, and I think this came out in the press conference, is between the hardliners and the more moderates. Trump is trying to get a conversation going with the moderates to get a political off-ramp. That's why the ceasefire is still enduring, because he still hopes that can be achieved. The military is taking on the IRGC and trying to teach them a lesson to back down. I'm not clear that that's going to work, but that's what's happening. And I think I found that very instructive to hear the military side accept this split in Tehran and how they're trying to break the IRGC away, essentially by teaching them, actually, it's the US that's in control of the Strait of Hormuz. I kind of feel that's where we're at in terms of ceasefire and talks at the moment.